On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Carolyn Jones, best remembered for her iconic portrayal of Morticia Addams in the Addams Family television series, died on August 3, 1983, at the age of 53 from colon cancer. Her passing was quiet in contrast to the glamorous, larger-than-life roles she had played throughout her career, yet it reflected a broader societal silence that once surrounded illness, especially cancer, in the mid-20th century. At a time when public figures often shielded health battles from the spotlight, Jones exemplified the stoic endurance many in her generation embraced. Rising to fame in the 1950s and 60s, Jones represented a new kind of Hollywood actress, sophisticated, mysterious, and charismatic. Her Morticia became an enduring symbol of Gothic elegance and subversive femininity, resonating with audiences well beyond the show's two-season run. The quiet dignity with which she faced her illness stood in stark contrast to the flamboyant and theatrical roles for which she was celebrated. But in that contrast lay a powerful reflection of the era's taboos and values. Strength through silence, grace under pressure, and the preservation of legacy over the sensationalism of struggle. Her death did not generate headlines on the scale of political leaders or cultural revolutionaries, but it sent ripples through Hollywood and among devoted fans of the Addams Family. In many ways, her passing amplified her legend. Morticia Addams became more than a quirky television character. She became a lasting icon of feminine power, dark humor, and outsider identity. The resurgence of interest in Gothic and alternative aesthetics in later decades, including the popularity of revivals and reimaginings of the Addams Family, ensured Jones's performance would never be forgotten. Carolyn Jones's death invites reflection on how we commemorate figures who shape culture in quieter, often underappreciated ways. Through reruns, fan art, Halloween costumes, and pop culture references, her portrayal of Morticia continues to be celebrated, proof that memory can outlive the moment. We immortalize figures like Jones not just because of what they created, but because of what they represented, the ability to embrace difference, challenge norms, and do so with style and sincerity. Her story illustrates how mortality does not diminish cultural influence, it can deepen it. In remembering her, we remember the power of character, artistry, and grace to endure far beyond life's final curtain. Margolis, a seasoned actor best known for his unforgettable portrayal of Hector Salamanca in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, died on August 3, 2023 at the age of 83 after a short illness. His death marked the end of a career that spanned over 5 decades, characterized by rich character work, intense performances, and a dedication to craft that never sought the spotlight, but always commanded it. Margolis's passing came at a time when television, once considered the lesser cousin of film, had become a dominant cultural force. His breakout role as the mute, bell-ringing Salamanca captured a new generation of viewers and showcased how minimalism in performance, just a glare, a gesture, a sound, could speak volumes. His death didn't ignite political turmoil or social upheaval, but it did remind us of the often underappreciated character actors whose subtle brilliance shapes entire stories. Living through and working across eras, from the gritty dramas of the 1980s and 90s to the prestige TV boom of the 2000s, Margolis embodied the shifting artistic values of Hollywood. He was not a tabloid figure. He was a craftsman. In an age when celebrity culture often prioritizes fame over substance, his death underscored the enduring power of dedication, versatility, and humility. The immediate response to his death was one of collective tribute. Tributes from co-stars, filmmakers, and fans poured in, not with shock, but with reverence. His roles in works by Darren Aronofsky, including Pi, Requiem for a Dream, and Black Swan, further cemented his place as a dependable force in complex, cerebral cinema. He wasn't always in the center of the frame, but he shaped it. Margolis's death illustrates how legacy is not always built on headlines, but on the accumulation of moments that resonate deeply. We remember him not for scandal or spectacle, but for the intensity he brought to every scene, no matter how small. His memory lives on through the characters he inhabited, the filmmakers he inspired, and the audiences he moved. In commemorating figures like Margolis, we recognize that mortality does not end influence. It crystallizes it. Through re-watching his performances, sharing his stories, and learning from his quiet excellence, we ensure his place in the collective memory of modern storytelling. Joe Longthorne, the British singer and impressionist beloved for his versatile voice and resilient spirit, passed away on August 3, 2019, at the age of 64, after a long battle with cancer. His death marked the end of a tumultuous yet inspiring life, one that reflected not just the highs and lows of show business, but the enduring will to perform despite immense personal and physical challenges. Longthorne rose to fame in the 1980s through television shows like Search for a Star and The Joe Longthorne Show, captivating audiences with his uncanny impressions of stars like Frank Sinatra, Shirley Bassey, and Tom Jones. But his was not a life of uninterrupted fame. Diagnosed with leukemia in 1987 and later with throat and prostate cancer, Longthorne battled illness for decades, often performing in between treatments. His death from cancer in his home in Blackpool was natural, yet it came after years of confronting mortality with rare defiance. In a cultural era increasingly shaped by fleeting fame and instant gratification, Longthorne represented a more enduring, labor-intensive form of celebrity. He wasn't propelled by scandal or social media virality, but by sheer talent and grit. His death reminded Britain of a generation of entertainers who viewed the stage not just as a platform, but as a calling, something worth returning to again and again, even when the body faltered. The immediate aftermath of his passing saw tributes pour in from fans and fellow performers alike. Many remembered not just his voice, but his unwavering commitment to live performance, often singing through pain, rarely stepping away from the spotlight. In this sense, his death amplified his legend. He became not just a gifted performer, but a symbol of perseverance and loyalty to craft. Longthorne's legacy lives on in tribute concerts, televised reruns, and fond public memory. But perhaps most importantly, he is immortalized in the countless performances where he channeled the voices of others while never losing his own. His story reminds us that mortality is not a limitation on influence, but a context in which it gains meaning. Through song, memory, and the shared resilience of artists who follow, Joe Longthorne continues to echo, a reminder that the most powerful legacies are not always the loudest, but the most steadfast. Robert Hardy, a distinguished British actor whose career spanned stage, screen, and television, died on August 3, 2017, at the age of 91 from natural causes. His passing marked the quiet end of a life dedicated to the performing arts, but also invited reflection on the values of tradition, scholarship, and service, principles that deeply informed both his career and personal life. Hardy was best known to many modern audiences as Cornelius Fudge in the Harry Potter films, but his legacy extended far beyond fantasy cinema. He portrayed historical figures like Winston Churchill multiple times and gained acclaim for his role as Siegfried Farnan in the beloved TV series All Creatures Great and Small. Hardy was also a scholar of the longbow, having written books and consulted for museums on the subject, a rare blend of actor and historian that typified his intellectual curiosity. His death was met with tributes that highlighted his Renaissance man reputation. Hardy's embodiment of Britain's literary and historical heritage, whether through Shakespearean roles or Churchillian gravitas, resonated particularly in a modern world grappling with the erosion of cultural literacy. In an age where performance is often equated with celebrity, Hardy reminded audiences of acting as a disciplined craft rooted in tradition and education. Though his death did not send political shockwaves or disrupt historical trajectories, it underscored the quiet fading of a generation of British actors who bridged classical training with modern media. His loss echoed in the acting community, particularly among those who still revere repertory theater and historical drama as vital cultural touchstones. Hardy is immortalized not only through film and television, but also through his scholarly contributions and public service. He was appointed Commander of the Order of the British Empire, CBE, for his work. Statues may not bear his likeness, but his performances continue to educate and inspire, preserving a model of artistic integrity and historical engagement. His life and death reflect a broader human desire to find meaning through legacy, whether on stage, in print, or in mentorship. Robert Hardy's memory endures because he lived with purpose and portrayed the past with passion, reminding us that mortality need not diminish impact when a life is devoted to truth, learning, and the art of storytelling. Ida Lupino, a pioneering figure in Hollywood history, passed away on August 3, 1995, at the age of 77 due to a stroke while battling colon cancer. Her death marked the close of a remarkable chapter in cinema, not simply as a farewell to a golden age actress, but as the loss of one of the few women to shatter directorial barriers in mid-20th century Hollywood. Born in 1918 into a British theatrical family, Lupino's early career was marked by stardom in film noir classics such as They Drive by Night and High Sierra. But it was behind the camera where she carved her legacy. At a time when women were seldom allowed near the director's chair, Lupino defied the studio system and co-founded an independent production company directing socially conscious films like Outrage, 1950, which addressed sexual assault, a topic Hollywood typically avoided. Her work tackled taboo issues with empathy and intelligence, often focusing on the marginalized and unheard. The circumstances of her death, quiet and largely unheralded at the time, stand in contrast to the waves she made during her life. Lupino's final years were spent in relative obscurity, a fate not uncommon for trailblazing women whose contributions are only fully recognized in hindsight. Yet in death, her legend only grew. As discussions about gender equity in film intensified in the decades that followed, Lupino was rediscovered and rightfully celebrated as a feminist forerunner and a cinematic rebel. Her death did not alter the course of history overnight, but it reminded the industry and the world of the slow-burning impact of pioneers. Lupino's legacy is now etched into the DNA of contemporary cinema, with modern female directors often citing her as a touchstone. Festivals, retrospectives, and academic studies have enshrined her contributions, reclaiming her place in a canon that long overlooked women's voices. Lupino's story is a testament to humanity's ongoing struggle with recognition, memory, and the power of narrative. Through her films and fearless example, she challenged norms and redefined what was possible, not just for women, but for cinema itself. Her death reflects how cultural memory often lags behind lived accomplishment, but also how time ultimately reveals the true measure of a life lived with purpose, courage, and conviction. Ty Hardin, best remembered for his rugged charm and leading role in the 1960s television series Bronco, died of natural causes on August 3, 2017 at the age of 87. His passing marked the quiet end of a career once blazing with promise, reflecting both the fleeting nature of fame and the shifting tides of Hollywood's golden era. Born Orison Whipple Hungerford Jr., Hardin's rise to stardom was meteoric. Discovered by a Paramount talent scout, he became one of the many contract actors groomed in the studio system, eventually landing the role of Bronco Lane, a Western hero who symbolized American grit, justice, and rugged individualism. At the height of his fame, Hardin was hailed as a successor to cowboy legends like Clint Walker and John Wayne, embodying the mid-century American ideal of masculinity. His death, though natural and largely unpublicized, mirrored the era he had come to represent, one of traditional values, strong silent types, and post-war optimism. However, as the cultural landscape shifted in the 1970s and beyond, tastes changed. The clean-cut cowboy gave way to more complex, often darker heroes, and Hardin's screen presence gradually faded from the spotlight. In his later years, he made sporadic appearances and became known for his involvement in controversial anti-government activism, a stark contrast to his upright screen persona. Hardin's passing did not create a cultural tremor in the way more politically or socially transformative figures' deaths often do. Yet, it did rekindle a nostalgia for the kind of television and storytelling that once defined American entertainment. For fans of classic westerns, his death was a reminder of a bygone era, when good and evil were clearly drawn and heroes rode in on horseback to save the day. His legacy lives on in reruns, vintage TV marathons, and the enduring popularity of the Western genre. Like many actors of his time, Hardin's life invites reflection on the nature of celebrity, how it can burn brightly, then flicker out, only to be rediscovered by later generations seeking a window into the past. In remembering Ty Hardin, we also examine how media immortalizes not just individuals, but ideals. His death reminds us that fame is often bound to its era, but legacy, when captured in celluloid, can ride on long after the final credits roll. Carmen Syla, best known for her iconic role as Edith Artois in the British sitcom Allo Allo, died on August 3, 2002, at the age of 80. Her death from lung cancer marked the loss of a beloved figure in British television, one whose life and career reflected the resilience, humor, and evolution of post-war entertainment in the United Kingdom. Born in Canada and raised in England, Syla's career was shaped by both personal and global upheaval. She trained at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art and performed on stage before transitioning to television. Her most famous role came in the 1980s with Allo Allo, a World War II comedy that satirized both the French resistance and Nazi occupation. Through the character of Madame Edith, a tone-deaf cabaret singer and loving, if exasperated wife, Syla became a fixture in British households, admired for her comic timing and expressive charm. Her death, while due to natural causes, occurred during a time when television comedy was undergoing significant transformation. Reality TV was on the rise, and traditional sitcoms were declining in popularity. Syla's passing underscored a generational shift in entertainment, from ensemble casts and character-driven humor to more fast-paced, often unscripted formats. Her work became emblematic of an era when humor was used not just to entertain, but to heal the psychological scars left by war, reflecting society's need to laugh even in the shadow of historical trauma. The immediate consequence of her death was a wave of tributes from fans and colleagues alike, who remembered her as a consummate professional and a warm personality. Although she had retired from acting several years prior, her death rekindled appreciation for the era of British television she helped define. The BBC and other outlets aired tributes, and Allo Allo reruns saw renewed interest. In reflecting on Silvera's death, we are reminded of how entertainment immortalizes those who bring laughter and levity to dark times. Though she did not shape global politics or cultural revolutions, her ability to make people laugh became her quiet legacy. Humanity has always turned to art, humor, and storytelling to process mortality and memory, and through these mediums, Carmen Sylvera's presence endures, echoing in the laughter she inspired across generations. Sidonie Gabrielle Colette, known simply as Colette, died on August 3, 1954 in Paris at the age of 81. Her death from natural causes marked the end of a literary life that had broken barriers and redefined the role of women in early 20th century French literature. As the first woman to be granted a state funeral in France who wasn't a widow of a military hero, her passing was more than the loss of a writer. It was the symbolic close of a cultural chapter rooted in sensuality, independence, and bold artistic expression. Colette's life and work consistently challenged societal norms. Her early success, under the name of her controlling first husband Willie, came through the Claudine novels, which were scandalous and autobiographical. After divorcing him, she not only reclaimed authorship of her work, but also redefined herself as a mime, actress, journalist, and finally, one of France's most celebrated novelists. Her novels like Gigi and Chérie openly explored female desire, aging, and the complexities of love, making her a literary pioneer in themes that are now considered modern. Her death came at a time when France was recovering from the trauma of World War II and grappling with post-colonial identity. In that context, Colette's life story, marked by defiance, reinvention, and artistic bravery, resonated with a generation seeking renewal. Her state funeral at the Palais Royal was not just a tribute to a great writer, but to a woman who embodied the evolving spirit of France itself. The immediate consequence of her passing was widespread mourning across the literary and feminist communities. Tributes poured in from around the world, and her legacy was cemented not only in her prolific writing but also in the way she lived her life, fearlessly, unapologetically, and creatively. Colette's death amplified her legend, transforming her into an icon of female emancipation and intellectual courage. Her life and death remind us how mortality often immortalizes. Through novels, films, like the adaptation of Gigi, and countless biographies, Colette lives on. She reveals humanity's enduring desire to challenge constraints and elevate voices that echo beyond the page. In commemorating her, we don't just honor a writer. We reaffirm our faith in art's power to preserve identity, provoke change, and transcend time.